Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. If this is your first time here, do consider hitting the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the great stuff we're going to be bringing to the channel in the coming year. I have some things that are already recorded and a few trips planned that are going to be a ton of fun, so make sure you join us for that. But today, I'm actually coming to you guys from the Southeastern Railway Museum in Duluth, Georgia. They put on a great show, and every year in November, they host the arrival of Santa Claus himself. And that will actually be coming here at the very end of the episode. If you want to jump to that, there will be a chapter down there in the video itself. You can jump directly to that. But I would implore you to go ahead and peek at the rest of this, because the museum itself has a ton of history, a ton of great displays here. And what we're actually to see here in a moment, off to your right, is a piece of, I guess you could call it, film history. There's a steam engine here under this cover that they're currently working on restoring that was actually in at least one, if not maybe a couple of films that I'm aware of. So very interesting piece there. And as we approach the workshop itself off to the right, you're going to see a Georgia Railway GP7 model locomotive. That thing is very, very cool. They've had that on static display for a while. They're currently doing some repairs to it, but they should have it back out here shortly. I don't believe it needs anything too extensive, maybe just some winterization and whatnot. But what's really interesting is if you take a look in the shop, you're going to see a green Southern Railway SW7 locomotive. And that locomotive itself is actually what's going to be, come springtime, replacing the 44-ton that's currently pulling this train. So if you do make it out to the Southern Railway Museum, and I do heavily recommend it, fantastic facility. We go several times a year. They'll be replacing the yellow switcher locomotive that you're going to see here shortly with that one really soon. And we're definitely going to go back and take a look at that. That's very cool. But let's go ahead and check out some of the other static displays that they actually have around here. Like, for instance, this E8A, the Southern Crescent locomotive here, number 6901. This actually used to pull a passenger train that, funny enough, would go directly by this facility. That ran, I believe, every day of the week. And then we have the CSX 8954. This is an SD45 locomotive. This used to pull trains over here in Atlanta on the CSX line, and actually all over the country on CSX tracks. It's a very beautiful display that they received just a few years ago, and in absolutely gorgeous shape. But let's check out a few more of these honest, just amazing pieces of history around the museum. Now, this right here has to be easily one of my favorite pieces in here. I talk about it every time we come to the museum. This Heisler locomotive is something you just don't see anywhere else. These were mostly used in logging camps and things like that. Generally speaking, they were actually narrow gauge. This is a standard gauge model that was used locally, I believe, in a limestone mine. But what really makes these unique is if you look on the sides, you can actually see two pistons that are in a V configuration, a lot like what you would find on a modern motorcycle or something. We actually here have a real honest piece of true history. This passenger locomotive actually belonged to a president. Well, I say belonged to a president. It ferried a president and a former president around, as you will no doubt see here in just a moment from the literature on the wall. Fantastic. They recently did restorations on this, actually during COVID. During the last couple of years when everything was shut down, this train car was shut down for obvious reasons. Now you can get into it and you can really get a look around and see how this actually was basically set up and used, some 50, 60, 70 years ago. Fantastic piece of history, and quite luxurious for its day. I mean, you'll see it's got sleeping cars, you'll see that there's living quarters, everything and anything you could possibly need would be included in this train car. Absolutely a shower, as you'll see here. Absolutely fantastic that they were able to basically bring this back to life. Now, obviously, this is not a traveling locomotive. This is locomotive. This is obviously not a traveling car. This is something that's on static display. But this is exactly how it would have been seen and, frankly, used when it was in service. A wonderful piece of history, and I love the fact that at this museum, we're actually able to go through and see these things exactly how they were meant to be seen when they were actually in service. I mean, you just simply, we go to a lot of train museums, obviously, as you'll see on this channel, and there's just not a lot of places where you get to actually go inside the train cars. Now, at the head of this, we actually have another steam locomotive. Number 750, this is a Constellation series, I believe. Could be wrong on that one. But it is a 462, very similar to a lot of other locomotives. I mean, this is a common configuration, a very common locomotive. This was actually pulled on the Atlanta-Savannah Railroad, and I believe it actually changed hands a couple of times, maybe even prior to. I think Atlanta-Savannah somehow had that in the middle. A lot of history in this locomotive, a ton of history. In fact, they used to run a pleasure train with this. They used to run some just passenger rides from Atlanta down to different places like Valdosta, Savannah, whatever, with this train. So this is yes, it's a static display now, but not that long ago it was an actual working display. So it's very cool to see those up here. Over here you'll see some hand cars and some old speeders. And along with trains or whatever, you'll see here that they have a lot of just general history as well. You saw some automobiles in the windows of the train over there before. Obviously fire trucks and things like that. This piece here is really interesting. If you've ridden the MARTA train in Atlanta in the past 10, 20 years, you probably saw these turnstiles. Now this is really fun. They have an interactive display of some of the signals and signage that different railroads in the area would have, and that to me is just really, really cool. You can actually go in and manipulate the lighting conditions, and it teaches you basically how the signs worked. Great hands-on for the kids. Now this next piece is something that I've never personally seen before. They have this little train station up at the very front when you first drive in, and I've never seen it open, and right now they have it decorated for the holidays, but there's just a lot of display pieces in here to kind of show you how these old-timey train stations would have worked, 100 to 150 years ago. Now, obviously, this one's filled with a lot of memorabilia and a lot of history, but largely, these benches and a lot of the displays that you see in the station manager's office are exactly how this would have operated back in the day. Now, obviously, there's a lot of trinkets and a lot of like I said, memorabilia from the railroads themselves, especially the Southern Railway, which owned the tracks that go right by this facility. Now they're owned by Norfolk Southern. Obviously, that the Southern Railway eventually was dissolved into, but a ton of history. Once again, I mean, it's a museum, of course it's going to have history, but the fact that they have this all set up, obviously with decoration, whatever, but exactly how it would have been seen is, to me, just phenomenal. And this is unique. I've not seen this yet. This is the first time I've seen these displays being used at the museum itself. So very, very, very neat to see. This is another thing I love here, all these Coca-Cola bottles. Obviously, Coca-Cola is a huge piece of Atlanta history, and it is just neat to see these. And kind of dates you a little bit when you look at a few of those and go, I've got some of those at home. Now here in the back, they just have a little Christmas thing set up. It's not overly important, but obviously, it is the season, as they say. So we'll just check this out real quick. No, this is predominantly a railroading museum, obviously. And they actually have one of those miniature zoo trains here. In fact, I believe this actually was from a zoo in Alabama and was restored, and obviously they've been working on it. They've got two, I guess, F-type series, or I guess E-type series, whatever you want to go with there, locomotives, and one of them is currently in the shop being worked on. But I thought this was really fun. It goes around this side of the facility, goes around the side parking lot, and let's just enjoy the ride and the scenery for a moment. And of course, there is a model railroad. This is predominantly a model railroading channel. You knew this was coming. This is a really neat setup they have in here. Now, obviously, there's some stuff, as you come in, there's some G scale. I believe that's a gauge 1 over on the side. And obviously, as you're around the corner here, just this enormous HO layout. And this is a really... I'm not going to talk too much. I'm not going to talk over this too much. I'm going to let you just take in the scenery. This is just a beautiful general layout. There are several different features that are controlled by Arduino computers. Case in point, this little mine train up top. This is an HON30. It runs on N-scale track, but it is scaled to narrow gauge HO. Very, very cool. I believe it goes once for every 3 circuits on the main one, and it is triggered by a computer, so very cool. There's also a crucible car for their steel mill and all that, but I'm just going to be quiet and let you guys enjoy this, and let me know in the comments down below some of your favorite features on this, because I think this is really, really neat. I want to take a moment here to thank the Southeastern Roman Museum for putting together such an amazing event. We've come several years now. It is always an immense amount of fun, and frankly, we're looking forward to come back every single year. And they're open all year round. You don't just have to come for this one event. They are open for events all throughout the year, every weekend, several days during the week. And the volunteer staff here is phenomenal. We come all the time, and we always have a blast. And there's way more things that I just haven't even had time to cover in the video. And, you know, we'll sprinkle throughout other videos later on during the year, but because we will definitely be back. Love this place. Had a great time. But I also want to thank the big man himself. That's right. It is time to introduce Santa Claus. So thank you each and every one for tuning in. I hope you have yourself a Merry Christmas. And let's enjoy the arrival of Santa Claus.